Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, a podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Together, Jake and his friends interview talents varying from actors, directors, writers, producers, composers, puppeteers, and so much more. Who will they be chatting with today? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. My name's Marty Monster with my buddy Matt Bingle. Hi, folks. How you doing? And our co-host Wyatt McCullough and Chris Bixby, and our host Jake Deffinbaugh. How you doing?
We are great. How are you?
Great. How are you two? How are you, Matt?
Marty? We're doing fantastic. Thanks for asking.
That's awesome.
Yes. So, who do we have today?
Today, we are very excited. We have another Fraggle Rock Puppeteer. By the way, this is the original for this one. Not
yes, the original.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. You also may know him as the puppeteer, only puppeteer, of Dee-Dee on Caillou. Thank you for specifying. And for our Canadian viewers, you may know him as Basil on Sesame Park. Please welcome Tim Gosley. Tim, happy to have you here.
Well, thank you very much, Marty. It's nice to see a puppet on the Zoom. That's always it's a good sign, I think.
Yes, it's a wonderful sign. It's a wonderful sign. Now we know who you are, but for those who don't, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, holy smokes! Well, for my television career, it kind of started around 1981. When the Muppets came to Toronto, and they decided they were going to make Fraggle Rock in Toronto, and they held auditions. So a bunch of us Canadian puppeteers went trundling down to the rehearsal studio and did our best to get on, and I was fortunate enough to do that. And then that led to other neat gigs over the years, some of which you mentioned.
Wow.
Right. So normally, now of course you worked with Jim Henson and Richard Hunt and all those wonderful people. So normally we'd ask a question like this more later on, but I am kind of curious, what was it like working with them?
Well, I mean, what was amazing for me was it was my first television gig. So all the puppets I'd done before that were like live puppet shows. I'd only seen Jim Henson on the Ed Sullivan Show, which I don't know if you guys remember the Ed Sullivan Show, but they used to.
I've heard of it.
We've seen it.
The Muppets would do huge sort of puppets Broadway stage numbers. So I was totally shell-shocked to be hired by these guys and to sort of see Jim in the studio and be performing puppets next to him. It was I'm pretty shy, so he was totally open and very easy to talk to, but I was a little shy, so I found it a little difficult to talk to him.
Right.
Richard Hunt, on the other hand, is just a crazy dude, and he was our trainer. So it was great. I get a lot of my skills directly through him teaching us before Fraggle Rock to get us kind of on track to be able to meet the Muppet Show puppeteers who sort of came in later.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I would have loved to have known Jim and Richard back then.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I've heard wonderful stories about the both of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're extraordinary in very different ways. I mean, Jim was kind of Mr. Cool and spoke very reservingly, and Richard was just bouncing off the walls. Not all the time. I mean, he was a very professional performer. I don't want to give the wrong feeling, but he was just a fairly outrageous fellow, and he would squeeze great performances out of us because he would just come at us with so much energy that we forgot ourselves and just entered into puppet land 150%. So it was great.
There you go.
Yeah. So kind of going back to the beginnings. How did you first get into puppetry?
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. I went to acting school in Edmonton, Alberta, which for you guys probably doesn't make any sense at all, but it was a good acting school on Canadian standards. And I was, as I've mentioned, quite shy, and I found as an actor, I felt a bit exposed on the stage. And at the same time, two of my fellow acting mates started to explore puppetry. And there was a fellow in Quebec named Felix Merpt who did a totally different kind of puppets than Muppet style. I'm not sure you would like it, but I was so enamored by the beauty of what he was doing that I guess tended to go in that direction. I think the other thing is that my father had a variety show, a British variety show here in Victoria, where I speak now, and he would dress up as characters that were like puppets. So he dressed up as an English schoolboy and as a British colonel, and he dressed up as Queen Victoria, and so I think my father was just an embodiment of a puppet, and I continued the tradition in a slightly more shyer way, because then I could hide and put the puppet on my hand.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jake, why don't you ask the next question?
Was puppeteering always a passion of yours?
Not really. I'm trying to think. I think it did kick in during sort of acting university. So I would have been 18 or 19. Beforehand, I sort of thought of puppets, and I loved the Muppet, but I hadn't really considered it as a career.
There you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. So, who are some of your inspirations?
Boy, that's
That's not one of them.
Yeah, that's not one of them. But that's not an
Yeah, Marty is definitely my my inspiration of the day.
That's the first time. That's the first time Marty's heard that.
Okay, well,
Marty, did you
may you hear it many more times.
That's awfully sweet. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think actually it is Kermit the Frog, and which is sort of not a very exciting answer, but what Kermit did that I think some of the Muppets don't do was he had a really great spectrum of emotion. So he could go from crazy and all that, but he could really rivet in the gentle emotions, which sometimes with puppet characters they kind of are acting the emotion, but it isn't real, and there's certain puppeteers that are able to make it real, and Kermit being sort of one of them, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then I had other puppets like this fellow Felix Merck, who's just a whole different style of puppets. He was a great inspiration, and trying to think who else might. I think that's about it. I mean, it wasn't to be on the Fraggle Rock's set. Like, we didn't realize at the time when we had auditioned how good these guys were. So we didn't actually know who was playing the main parts. So we kind of thought we might be playing the main parts, which is an exciting notion. So we were all sort of, feeling pretty confident and great about ourselves. And then the Muppet Show puppeteers came in, and I mean, we were good, otherwise we wouldn't have been there. But when we saw people like Dave Goles and, all of them, their level of puppetry was so much more mature than what we were doing. It was, I mean, on one way, it was a bit disappointing for ourselves, but we realized we had a lot to learn. So Fraggle Rock for me was kind of like going for a master's degree in puppetry, because I got to watch.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So why don't you ask the next question?
How did Fraggle Rock come about for you?
I'm sorry?
How did Fraggle Rock come about for you? Like, how did you start working on it?
Oh, well, I went to Toronto. I was in, where was I? I think I was in Edmonton at the time. I was born in Victoria, BC, where I now am. I went to Edmonton to get an education, and after university, I got a job as a puppeteer. My girlfriend at the time wanted to become a journalist, so she wanted to go to Toronto to get an education in journalism.
Mm-hmm.
I tagged along, and I had decided by that time I wanted to be a puppeteer, so I wrote to every puppet company I could find in Ontario, which is the area around Toronto and the province in which Toronto's in. And I got a really a small job working on school touring and stuff like that. And also I got work inside of an office of another puppet company. And while I was working at this, and by this time my girlfriend had dumped me because she'd had enough of the guy that wanted to be the puppeteer.
Yeah.
And on the front page of one of the main Toronto papers, it said the Muppets were coming to town.
Oh, wow.
So, at first you go, well, that's nice. How does that affect me? And then I went, gee, I moved to this town to try to get a career in this profession. And, then you sign up for the auditions and you auditioned.
Yeah.
That was a really nerve-wracking process because you had to wait to see if you made the next audition. And then they hired 13 or 14 people, and they were only going to keep 11 or 12 for the show. So while we were learning, you knew one or two might have to go.
Yeah.
That could be me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was good because it drove you to, be as good as you can, but it also was a little nerve-wracking until you totally knew that you were on board and signed. And they were extremely lovely people. I think kind of different than many, big production companies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're still going to this day, which is amazing. Like the reboot's still going on.
Yeah.
Fraggle Rock, back to the walk.
Which I want to ask you this: if you were asked to come back and play a character for the reboot, would you return?
Well, I tried to get on it as most of us old guys.
Yeah.
But I think the same as they were, like when I was hired, I was I think I was in my mid-20s, and I was probably older than some of the other guys. So there is something about getting fresh, young talent. And it is really hard work. Like physically, it's hard work. Mm-hmm. So I think they are also worried about us old guys being able to make it through the day.
Yeah.
So I think many of us were disappointed. But as they say, that's showbiz.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Why Catherine?
That is absolutely true.
Yeah,
absolutely
Can
true.
I ask you guys what you think of the reboot?
It's amazing.
It's amazing. I've seen a couple episodes. It's really good.
It's amazing. It's getting
Watch a whole season of it so far. Great series.
We know quite a bit of the people. Matt actually, one of the person who performs Moki actually follows Matt on Instagram.
I was about to say he knows more.
Matt knows more. Matt has more connections.
Yeah.
We have more connections. Yep.
And I think John Tartaglia and Donna Kimball and I think all the newer guys, like, they've done a great job taking over the characters from
for sure.
Jerry and Catherine Mullen.
They're doing a great job.
They've done a wonderful job.
Oh yes.
Yeah. I can't wait for the second season. Series.
Same. So, do you have a favorite Fraggle Rock song or episode?
Oh gosh. Well, I got to play Brool, the bass player,
Yeah.
Oh yes.
and
Nice.
Jim played Cantus, the flute player. So
Yes.
Yeah.
kind of meant that all us guys in his backup band got to hang out in a lot of scenes with him. And I think I got to sing a couple of songs. So there was I got like not the lead part. I didn't do that till other other TV shows. But I got to sing in I can't remember the name of the song, but it was quite a sort of mystical song that Jim sang, and we got to walk through Fraggle Rock as a band.
I know.
I think I remember, yeah.
So there's 2 or 3 episodes where the band was in it. So yeah, I think that sticks out in my mind. I also played the Poison Cackler, who was big monster thing, and it how many people? I think there was 4 or 5 people operating that, and
Oh my god!
Wow.
on the head of it. So I got to take the credit, but there was, I think, 2 people behind me doing legs and a person on the tail. So I found it very stressful, but really interesting. It was a lot of fun.
Goodness.
Funny enough, there's a book and record we have.
Oh,
Yeah.
Go book Fraggle and the Poison Cackler. This was released in 1984. It's actually a book and record. It's actually pretty cool.
Wow, I haven't seen that. Did Karen Bell do the illustrations?
The illustrations were by Sue Venning.
Okay, because Karen would she illustrated some of the books. She's also a sort of talented illustrator. She was great to work with, Karen Proud.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yes.
I know. Speaking of the books, Matt has another Fraggle Rock book.
You have it right here. Mm-hmm. I do.
Look at that.
This is the ultimate visual history. We've shown this on some episodes before.
Yeah, something about Neil Patrick Harris on it. I never noticed that.
Yeah.
It says it at the bottom.
That's that is awesome.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. This is like a whole visual history. We'll show a couple pictures real quick.
Wow, that's really neat.
Maybe some of your characters are in there.
That's a Spark Notes version, folks. Spark Notes. Yep. Okay, just found a random page at this point. I don't feel like going through a couple hundred pages.
Yeah, it's a little tough with one hand there.
Yeah.
We don't have that time. These are some really cool pictures. If you have
there you go.
seen this book, these were taken. I want to say around the fall of '81, sometime '82.
Oh,
these
really? Okay. The boy who's sort of in the first or second season.
Yeah, there's a couple hundred pages with beautiful pictures.
Wow,
absolutely gorgeous.
Wow. Yeah,
so many.
I'll have to try to track that one down.
It's on.
It's amazing.
It's on Amazon.
Yeah,
it is. So it's on Amazon. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. So on the subject of some of the characters you performed on Fraggle Rock, are you still able to do any of their voices?
Well, I did a Granny Ma Fraggle, which was sort of an old lady Fraggle. Which Granny Ma Fraggle.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's not quite the same, but it's kind of in that realm, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, that is awesome.
Wow.
And Brool was I don't remember. Brool didn't speak a lot. He was just like the cool silent bass player in the back. But
yeah.
But yeah,
I need to go back and watch the reboot because apparently Brool appeared in the reboot.
Interesting.
Maybe we missed that.
Yeah, Brool is in the reboot. I haven't seen all the episodes. I too thought it was awfully well done. I think they've
oh yes.
I think
Apple too.
It's a bigger set than what we had.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But they don't have the Gym Meister there, so that's
no.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Fraggle? It could be like ones you performed or ones that you haven't performed? Like, do you have a favorite?
I liked Gobo.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
For a similar reason to liking Kermit, just because he was kind of a softer, grounded character that all the other puppets would go crazy around, but he was sort of the grounding figure. And yeah, and I'm trying to think of Jerry's last name.
Nelson.
No, Jerry Nelson. I mean, he was extraordinary, and he was a voice guy that he just did all kinds of voice. And he was sort of older than some of the other performers, so he kind of was on his own track. Learned a lot from him.
He's awesome. He's definitely missed.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did an absolutely amazing job where he's done. So.
Yeah. So Matt or Marty, why don't you ask the next question?
Okay.
Don't go away, Marty. Stay with us.
Staying in the Muppet realm, what was it like working in the movie Follow That Bird?
Yes.
I really enjoyed that. That was actually great. I didn't have is that the one that has Elmo on the cover?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Elmo isn't in it.
I don't have my copy, but I have
That's how they made the money back then.
Yep.
Well, yeah, so there's
And Brian still do.
they still do. Marty,
but they put Elmo on the cover without him being in the show, which is kind of fun. But anyways, it was great. I got to be a honker, and I think I embodied the honker at that time extremely well. So
yeah.
My honker got to be beside Telly Monster, so I spent a lot of the time.
Nice. We know Telly.
Yes, Marky Robinson was one of our previous guests. He's amazing.
Okay, yeah, no, he's such a gentleman, and
he is,
and a great Telly Monster, and we would get to ride in the Grouchmobile.
Yeah,
nice.
So it was a specially built car, so that Marty and I would be in the back. And our legs, they had sort of a secret compartment, so our legs could stick down under the people in the front.
Yeah.
Like our whole body sort of had to disappear somewhere, and it was a pretty small car. So that was just a heck of a lot of fun, and having the Grouch driving and Maria in there.
It definitely is an amazing movie. It holds up to this day. The songs are amazing as well.
Yeah, the songs are amazing.
Yeah, and there was a great scene in a diner. The Grouch.
Yes, I remember Grouch Diner. I think
we got to throw lettuce all over the place.
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember that as well.
You know, life is good when you can just throw. Excuse me, I almost said a rude word.
Go ahead. You got
when you can throw crap all over the place, and it's your job.
Yeah.
So I got to be in that scene in a couple of places because I got to be a Grouch throwing lettuce, and then at the window, Marty and I came up. We sort of raise up from the outside and look in the window to see what's going on in the Grouch Diner. So,
oh wow,
that's where puppets are fun, because you're sometimes doing 2 or 3 parts in the same scene, but the way you're able to do it. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned you performed Honker. Who else did you get to perform in that movie?
I did. I know I sang on the Grouch Grouch anthem. There's a Grouch anthem in there, so I sang on that. And what you would do is, because we were kind of the Fraggle Rock puppeteers, like this, it was filmed while we were doing Fraggle Rock, again, sort of outside of Toronto. Wow. And so you'd get to hold. Like I got to hold, I don't remember if it was Bert or Ernie, and we were on one of those track shots going down. They remade Sesame Street outside of Toronto, and I got to be Bert or Ernie, sort of walking down.
Wow.
The the street, and at one point I was Oscar in the garbage can, and these often were like really big shots. So
Yeah.
Right, like with all the characters together.
if
Yeah.
Oscar is
Exactly.
talking, they put Mr. Finney in Oscar, but there's lots of times where you're getting to play other characters. So that was a big thrill. So I think what was fun with that whole project is that I got to do so many different. So in a way, it was extra work, but some of them were iconic characters that were just a lot of fun to play with.
Mm-hmm. Amazing people in that movie as well, besides you guys.
Nice. So Marty, why don't you give the human a chance to ask another question?
Fine, you can come back. Okay. Sounds so depressed with that. So staying on the Sesame realm, what was it like performing Basil on Sesame Park?
Yeah, Basil. I call him Basil.
Yeah, Basil.
Yeah.
Basil.
That was great because that was kind of like the payoff from like in Fraggle Rock. Basically, I was a puppet extra, but there the whole episode, and I learned my chops, and then I managed to, get a role on Canadian Sesame Street because they believed that the puppeteers were of a quality that we could do that. So Basil was just lovely, and I did get to make a special called Basil Hears a Noise.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where Elmo made an appearance. Yeah.
Yeah, it was repackaged, so it was Basil Hears a Noise with Elmo. But Elmo was there, so I got this was I think pretty early before Elmo was such a mega hit. He was kind of known and rising up, but that was a real pleasure too, and it's on YouTube. I was sort of surprised because usually they take these things down.
Yeah.
Oh wow! We need to look at it then.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's very old school, but I really enjoyed that, and Basil was a lovely character. I got to write some of the segments too, which was a lot of fun.
There you
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice. Do you have like a specific favorite memory from working on Sesame Park?
Yeah, well, one, I was on it when it was called Canadian Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Right.
And what happened was it turned into Sesame Park because everybody outside of Canada thinks we live in parks. I'm not quite sure why. But so I'm just trying. That's it. It is a very long time ago. So I think it was fun. I do know Rob Mills.
Yeah.
He was Junior Gorg on the non-reboot of Fraggle.
Right.
We were pretty close friends. So he played a character called Dodie. And sometimes as I was getting to know how to puppeteer, like Basil had live hands. So I would get Rob to do my hands while I sang a song or something. Mm-hmm. And Rob would just kind of go rogue and go crazy with the hands, so that I was trying to sort of both sing my song and control my puppet, but I couldn't really control my puppet because Rob was, when you have a guy pushing you around with his hands and stuff, he was making me do all kinds of things that I may or may not wanted to do. But a little bit like a continuation of working with Richard Hunt. He was a bit of a madman. So I had a lot of good times with Rob on the set.
Yeah, and can you still do Basil's voice?
Oh, Basil the Bear here.
Yeah.
That's me. Basil is sort of, he's kind of an extension of my character. I think he thinks kind of slow. He's not as stupid as he looks, but he's generally a good guy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Jake, why don't you ask the next?
What was it like working with all the other performers in the Muppets, a celebration of 30 years special?
Yeah, those they were neat, but you like basically in a situation like that would have been filmed while we were doing Fraggle. Yeah. So there was just a ton of puppeteers on the set.
Oh yes.
Wow. The show would be made in like 3 or 4 shooting days. So basically a lot of what you're doing, like the main characters are getting the attention because that's what the show's about. And then in that case, basically I'm in the room with 20 or 30 other people, and we're just waiting for our little turn to get called in and be in a production number or whatever. We would also hang out in between times because a lot of us had some making capabilities, so you'd go hang out in the puppet workshop and watch how they made the puppets, or you'd go in and you'd see a rack of 5 or 6 Kermits and you'd kind of go into a state of awe and appreciation to just see all these things, and the fact that they can, like, I don't know if you make puppets, but to make a puppet that's exactly the same as another puppet, you've got the same pattern, is not an easy thing to do. So,
I know Matt over here knows how that feels, as he's making his own live hand.
He's starting to, but just think of procrastination. But it's true.
Come on, Marty, be nice.
I mean, I'm not wrong. No, he's not wrong.
So
it takes a lot of time, folks.
So do you remember at all who you performed in the 30 years special?
I really don't, because at that time that was kind of like an extra project to working on Fraggle Rock. So Fraggle was kind of the gig, and then the 30. I mean, what was really neat about the 30 years special was you got to see the classic Muppet puppets.
Right.
So you'd been working with, a lot of the people, but you got to see Miss Piggy, and you got to see, I think Jim had I think it was on that show, it was his birthday, so he sort of went out celebrating the night of his birthday, and then you get to see it the next day and sort of have to do fabulous puppet chops when you've been up kind of late. So I think in those cases, I just really enjoyed watching the whole universe in which you were in.
Right.
Because it is a universe. There's people that's fixing the puppets. There's people doing the scenery, and it's kind of a clockwork to make it all function, and it's sort of a pleasure to be able to watch that.
Yeah. So speaking of Canadian shows, you also got to work on Caillou for a season, doing the puppetry for Dee-Dee. What was that like?
So did you guys get Caillou down there? I guess so.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was on PBS Kids down here.
Yeah,
which is where, of course, Sesame.
PBS Kids and Sprout, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I really liked the cast and crew. For me, Dee-Dee was kind of a secondary character, and by that time, I was kind of used to doing lead characters. So, in a way, for me personally, I loved the puppet and I loved doing it, and also that it was a character that I could manipulate, but I couldn't do the voice of a little tiny girl squirrel. So I sweated bricks trying to make my male voice become a little girl squirrel, and it just didn't work. So what they did, which I think they were planning to do to start off with, was they got a voice actor, a female voice actor, and they dubbed what I did, which is
Wendy Welch,
often done. I think so. I don't. For me, it was an interesting project, and it's always lovely to to have work. It was in Montreal because I was living in Quebec by that time, so it's great to work in Montreal.
Yeah, that was the best season of Caillou. The other characters were amazing too, as Rexy and Gilbert.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the puppet segments. I remember those.
The reboots. There's a reboot of Caillou. Bring the puppets back.
Yeah,
I don't know why. I guess the puppets didn't either. They sometimes it's just an expense thing. They didn't want to do the expense.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to give it an added texture, but the show worked so well by itself that I think they sort of went, well, it was a nice experiment. Why are we spending all this extra money for something that was getting the same viewership? I don't know. I'm just making that up.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite segment for doing the puppets for Caillou?
No, all I remember was I really enjoyed being in a tree. I had a little tree that I lived in.
Yeah.
For some reason, you kind of have these nice little cubby holes that you get used to performing and stuff. So there's a repetition. Like I prefer doing puppets in a studio than sort of out in the real world. Out in the real world is sort of fun, 1 day out of 5 or something, but there's a whole routine of being in studio, which I very much enjoyed.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy that that Wendy Welch not just did the voice of the Wikipedia was true on that, but she also did the puppeteer voice Wanda for the Mighty Jungle, which is crazy.
We didn't find her.
Holy boy, you guys are on top of these things.
We do our research.
Yeah, which one of our previous guests, Mike Peterson, was also on.
Yeah.
He did Bruce for the Mighty Jungle.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah, he was awesome. Talking to him was awesome.
Very fun.
Yeah, and it's also that you actually did the assistant puppeteer for Owl on the Book of Pooh.
Yeah, he did. What was that like?
I didn't do that. So I
okay. Oh,
that must be something the IMDb got wrong.
Yeah, I mean, they do make little mistakes.
Congratulations. Find out who really did it.
I think it's in Muppet Wiki. It says that I played either the Cave's Oldest Fraggle or Noodle.
Yeah, it's the Cave's Oldest Fraggle.
Yeah, well, that was Dave Gould's, which I mean, I'll take this, but it wasn't me.
Whatever name.
Wikipedia, good job.
Wikipedia is wrong too for once. There you go.
This isn't the first time.
Because I mentioned about that.
Exactly. Exactly. So why don't you ask the next?
What would you say is the most challenging part about puppeteering?
Oh, okay. Well, I think there was a time on Basil.
That's the most challenging part. There you go.
There you go. That's the most challenging part. Silencing these phone calls. Yeah.
There was a time on Basil where I was doing so much mouth sync that my thumb froze. The muscles stopped working. So I think that's the only time that it has happened to me. But what's great on a shooting day is if you do have little times when your arm isn't above your head. So if your arm is above your head for like a 12-hour to a 14-hour shooting day, you're usually pretty cacked out afterwards, and you need to have a hot bath and try to get back in order. So I think it was sort of the main struggle is just the physicality of it, because it's not a natural position to have your body for a full working day.
Because doing this for a long time can be, it can get pretty tiring after doing it for a long time.
Especially if you're doing, usually when you're training people, you're getting them to just hold their hands over their heads, and they sort of slowly bring their hands down. And what Richard would do was sort of yell at us, "Get your hand up there." And he would just make us have our hands over our heads for unnaturally long periods of time, which is what we would have to do once we got into the studios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So, do you have any advice for people who want to get into puppeteering?
Well, I think it's kind of a different world now. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I was just really fortunate and in the right place at the right time, with I think the right background. Like as I said, my father was kind of a natural puppet, and his kind of performing was sort of the British version of vaudevillian thinking. So I had the thought process of the Muppets without knowing I had the thought process of the Muppets. Today, I don't know. It's kind of watching the shows and becoming idols of certain characters.
So many people.
And trying to get in there. But, I mean, I don't know, or I know very few of the people on the new Fraggle. I did sort of ironically train Ingrid Hansen, who is inside of Ma Gorg.
Nice.
So I think that my training may have led her to eventually work with the Muppets, although ultimately she's a very talented woman, and she probably would have worked with them anyways. But so that's kind of nice. How
keep going. Speaking of the Gorg, we do know the new voice of the Gorg, aka Dan Garza.
Okay, that's the new Gorg.
Yeah, new Gorg, Dan Garza.
Yeah, which we're planning getting him on future work. All of us are great friends with him. Great guy.
In a future episode.
Yeah, we talked to him. Yeah, we talked to him recently. He's really nice.
Really awesome.
Yeah,
and he's Junior Gorg.
Yep.
Yes.
So we plan to have the body.
He's the voice of Junior Gorg.
Yeah, he's a voice.
He's done other stuff for the reboot too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to you, Dan Garza. Same goes to Mike Pearson. There you go.
Same with the guy that worked. Same with the guy that did the body actor. I think we're gonna have the body of Junior Gorg on soon. We're gonna try.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So talking about all the things you've done over the years, can you share any projects at all you're working on now?
Something that's coming out on Netflix. I think it's August 24th.
Oh, that's pretty soon.
Show called Lost Ollie, and it's a sort of a hybrid of puppetry that then they CGI'd on top of it. So it was we filmed it, I don't know, about a year ago in Vancouver. And basically on that, I'm just a technician. So it's hard to explain. I think Henson made the puppets. They were really beautiful puppets, but they were puppets that were ultimately going to be CGI'd afterwards. So in that case, I became more of a technician than a performer. So it was really, and it was a big production. So it was kind of cool to be on a huge set, because just the way they make films and television in comparison to what it was like back in the 80s and 90s when I did most of my work, like the cameras have changed, the process has changed. And so I found that really very interesting. And I think the show itself, it's a 4 or 6 episodes. I think it's just 4 episodes. And it's about sort of old discarded toys that reconnect to each other in the real world. So it's in the real world.
Oh, definitely.
So that was, I will be interested to see it, because what we did was then for months, like for a year afterwards, reconfigured into CGI. But I'm curious to see what the world's reaction to it will be.
I'll definitely watch it, because it seems like something.
Yeah, same here.
Me
Same here. So, go ahead, Matt.
No, we're gonna watch it too.
Yeah.
And also what was interesting is the movement style was quite un-Muppet-like. So where my training is to kind of put on a puppet and make it kind of bounce through the set, walking with a a good, lively energy. This was more naturalistic, and it was sort of a challenge to figure out how to not do Muppet style puppeteering for this project, because it was not a Muppet project. So
Thank you.
that was quite it was very educational, and it's always neat to learn new things.
There you go.
Sure.
There you
Yeah.
go. So Jake, why don't you ask next?
What would you like to say to your fans and supporters?
My fan, I don't know. Do I still have any? I'm such a old dude.
Yeah, boss. Yeah, all of us.
Many of my fans and supporters are no longer with us. I don't know.
There you go. You have us.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So it does amaze me that
Our
there
pleasure.
are guys like you out there that sort of track us old farts down and show some interest. I mean, both my kids are not interested in going into puppets at all. They sort of like having a loony, crazy father, but it's it's kind of lonely out there. So it is very nice that you guys track us down and get us to remember the old days, you know.
Yeah.
It's like a reunion. Just bringing back all these people that worked in the original Fraggle and other projects we get talked to.
Yeah.
They remember their moments.
Yeah. And real quick, I did want to ask, because it's almost been 10 years since we lost him. What was it like working with Jerry?
Oh, he was a real gentleman. I was a little bit afraid of all the lead puppeteers, but he was so cool. He was just such a laid back fellow. And I did go to his wedding in Cape Cod, which was during the Fraggle time.
Nice, which is where I am.
Oh, really? Okay. So on the beach somewhere, we did this wedding back in the 80s, and Richard Hunt was I think he was the best man. He definitely gave a big speech, and I went and watched the whales as part of my weekend there and stuff.
Oh, wow.
Jerry Nelson was an extremely special fellow, and sort of, well, it's sad when everybody goes. So many of these people have gone, which is kind of, you know. I mean,
hard to believe.
When I joined Fraggle, we kind of thought of Jim as an old guy, and he hadn't even hit 50. I turned 68 yesterday, and I think Jim Henson died at 51, I believe. And it's so, I don't know, there's something kind of melancholic on how many of the original dudes and dudettes are no longer. He
was 53 by when.
What, 53?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So he has the info. He just has to instead of Google. It's Google. There you go.
Okay, so it wasn't planted in your brain.
No, he hasn't.
Not his anyway.
Yeah, not his. This guy that forgets everything.
Yeah. Well, it helps. It helps not to have a brain to be a good puppeteer. Actually, I think there's something about having an empty head that leads to spontaneity.
There you go.
Yeah. So is there anyone from like Fraggle or Sesame Park or wherever, Caillou, that you still like keep in touch with?
Yeah, well, one of my heroes is a guy named Larry Merkin, who lives in Toronto, and he was one of the producers. He was sort of the Canadian producer, sort of along with Jim and a couple of other people, and we've kept in touch over the years, and he's sort of helped. Like, I had an idea for a TV show, and he would help with that, but we occasionally get together, and I am still in touch infrequently with a lot of not a lot, but a number of the Fraggle performers, Rob Mills, and I just saw Gord Robertson.
Nice.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He was out here about 2 months ago, so we hadn't seen each other for a long time. So we had a coffee. Well, it wasn't coffee because he doesn't drink coffee, but I had a coffee.
We'd love to have him on.
Yeah,
he'd be wonderful.
Most of us know him because he did Zombie for
Exactly.
Suburbia.
Yeah. I mean,
Which is an amazing show.
He's extraordinary, and he's a special guy. So I would try to get him on if he's.
I'll try to find him.
I'm not sure if he's a Facebook guy. I don't know how you track him down.
We'll do our best.
Well, we'll do our best. We're tracking down.
You guys do seem to have a talent for it. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I know. Speaking of Sesame Park and people, we did try to get Fred Stinson on, but I've not heard back from him. He was also on
Fred Stinson.
Okay. Yeah. So Fred, he was. I wasn't on Sesame Park when he was on it. He also did a show, the Big Comfy Couch.
Yes.
Great show.
Yeah.
So
he's awesome.
My friend Rob, the crazy puppeteer, he produced that and created it with a couple of other people.
Oh, wow.
So that was like that whole production company really was a result of Fraggle Rock and these different creative minds getting together and wanting to do similar work after Fraggle left us.
Yeah.
We definitely gotta get Rob on to talk about Big Comfy Couches. That show is a huge part of some of our childhoods.
Is that right? Yeah. No, it was really interesting and sort of the way they mixed puppets with clowns and other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, if people want to contact you, where can people find you?
Well, I don't have a website because I'm old and gray. You can kind of Google me to contact me. It's Tim Gosley at tellus.net. That sort of, or I'm on Facebook.
Right,
which is how we got you.
Description down below.
So I
should go check it out.
Yeah.
There you go. You just check it out. There.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but it feels like it's been a while since Marty asked the last question.
Yeah, Marty, how about you close us out with the last question?
Okay.
Yeah, Marty.
Hey, Marty.
It's like this. Here we get out of here.
Nice spotlight today. I like this.
Where's the guy with the nose?
I have a nose, so
the long one.
Oh, Julius.
Julius. Yeah.
Over here, just listening.
The old off-camera talking routine. That's
Yes.
That's enough. So this podcast is Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. When you think of nostalgia, what do you think of, or how do you define nostalgia?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
How do I word it better?
He's asking, so since this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, when you think of the word nostalgia, what do you think of?
Being very old. So nostalgia is sort of warm comfort TV shows and books and films and stuff like that, which is great. It's a little strange when you are the object of the nostalgia. So that's
the best thing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'd like to say on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for coming on, Tim.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tim.
Yes, thank you.
I'm so glad that we're finally able to do this. Keep up the great work and see what's next for you.
Yeah, and you were worth it.
Tim.
Yeah, I'll what was that, Tim?
Well, bless your hearts, and you're a great team. You're fun. The way you bounce off of each other.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll message you when the episode comes out.
We'll try to find the other people from Fraggle you work with.
Yeah.
Next week I'll be very nostalgic for this.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Well, everyone, that of course brings another episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show to a close. We've absolutely enjoyed our time with Tim Gosley. Thanks again, Tim.
Yes,
And
thank you
from
so
all of
much,
us
Tim.
to all of you, remember that you are worth it and to always stay nostalgic. Bye-bye,
Hey,
everybody.
You're worth it. Stay
Bye-bye.
nostalgic. Take care,
You're
everyone.
worth
Bye.
it.
So
Tune in
much.
next week to see
Bye.
who we got.
Yes.
You're my Wyatt. See ya.
Bye, everyone. See you next time on another episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Be sure to follow us on social media and stream us wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember that you are worth it and to always stay nostalgic. Bye-bye.